Welcome to this deep dive. I was thinking recently about how when we learn basic math as kids, there's this deep, almost profound comfort in the certainty of it.
Oh, absolutely. It's very safe.
Right, like 2 plus 2 is always 4. You put in the correct inputs, and you get the guaranteed output. It's clean, it's completely predictable, and it makes total sense to our developing brains.
Yeah, it's a closed system. There's no ambiguity, no gray area to navigate. You just follow the rules and you get the reward of the correct answer.
Exactly. But then you graduate from math class, you enter adulthood, and suddenly you start applying that same rigid arithmetic to human happiness.
And that is exactly where the math completely falls apart.
It totally shatters. So today, we are deconstructing our societal definition of success. We want to see if we've been measuring it all wrong. We're unpacking an excerpt from The Currency of Contentment, Redefining Success and Growth, specifically a narrative titled Money and Success from the Easy English podcast.
It's a really fascinating source text.
It really is. And to anchor this for you, the listener, we are looking at a guy in the story named Ryan.
Right, Ryan. He basically represents the quintessential modern worker. I mean, he is the person executing the societal formula flawlessly.
He really is. Ryan is incredibly hardworking. He's super ambitious. He wakes up before dawn, puts in these grueling hours at the office, and his mind is it's constantly running in the background.
Yeah, calculating how to earn the next promotion.
Exactly. He looks at the people he follows online. He sees the curated luxury lifestyles, the expensive cars, the sprawling houses, the endless vacations.
All the shiny things.
All of it. And he makes a vow to himself that he is going to attain that level of visible success. He assumes, getting back to our math problem, that more money plus more hours must automatically equal more happiness.
And the crazy part is he actually achieves the external metrics he set out to conquer.
Right.
He gets the good salary, he buys the expensive things, he moves into the nice apartment. If you're looking at his life as a spreadsheet, all the columns add up perfectly.
That is the game.
He essentially wins the game he was taught to play.
But the formula is broken. Because despite having all the things he thought he wanted, the expected output of happiness just never arrives.
It never shows up.
Instead, Ryan is exhausted. He's chronically stressed out. He rarely has a moment to relax. He barely sees his family, and he finds himself staring at the ceiling late at night, asking himself, why am I not happy?
Which is such a common experience, right? This points to a massive psychological disconnect.
Oh, for sure. How so?
Well, Ryan successfully built the infrastructure of a life, but he entirely forgot to factor in the actual experience of living it.
Wow, yeah.
He constructed the shell of success, but the interior is hollow. It's a perfect example of what psychologists refer to as the hedonic treadmill.
Right, the hedonic treadmill.
Exactly. You run harder and faster to acquire the next thing, assuming it will bring lasting joy. But the dopamine hit of the purchase fades almost immediately.
And then you're just stuck maintaining it.
Precisely. You are simply left with the maintenance of that new lifestyle. And maintaining a more expensive lifestyle usually requires more stress, more hours, and honestly, more anxiety.
Which means his entire worldview is essentially a trap of his own making.
Yes.
And realizing that your operating system is fundamentally flawed makes encountering someone on a completely different operating system incredibly jarring.
It's a total shock to the system.
Which brings us to the cafe revelation. Ryan meets up with an old friend of his named Omar.
Right, and they meet in a small, quiet cafe, which stands in stark contrast to the high-stress, high-velocity environment Ryan usually inhabits.
Yeah, you can just picture it. Ryan sits down, probably vibrating with residual work anxiety, checking his phone, stressing about unread emails, and he looks across the table at Omar.
And Omar is just entirely different.
Totally. Omar is genuinely calm, he's deeply relaxed, he's quick to smile. But here is the detail that just breaks Ryan's brain.
Yeah.
Omar does not have a high-paying job.
No, he lives a very simple life.
Very simple. So Ryan, who has literally sacrificed his physical health and peace of mind to accumulate wealth, cannot process what he is seeing. He asks Omar directly, how can you possibly be so happy without chasing more money?
And Omar's response is just a masterclass in nuanced, grounded thinking.
It really is.
He doesn't fall into the trap of demonizing money.
Right. He's not anti-money.
Exactly. He acknowledges its utility. He tells Ryan that money is important, but it is not everything. Omar views money strictly as a tool that provides a baseline of comfort.
Yeah.
It's excellent at solving very specific practical problems like shelter and food, But he points out that money fundamentally cannot purchase peace of mind.
No.
It cannot buy strong, resilient relationships, and it cannot generate real, enduring happiness from within.
Because Omar has established a totally different metric for success. For him, the ultimate currency is balance.
Balance, exactly.
Success means having the time to rest, the time to be present with his family, and time to grow as a human being. He finds profound joy in just taking morning walks or having unhurried conversations with friends.
And learning new skills just for the sake of learning them.
Right, not for how they look on a resume or LinkedIn.
He has decoupled his internal sense of worth from his external economic output.
Which is huge.
In a culture that constantly demands we monetize our hobbies and optimize our free time, Omar's perspective is a radically liberating shift.
It is. Okay, let's pause and push back on Omar's philosophy for a second here.
Sure.
Because here's where it gets really interesting for you and me. Omar tells Ryan his ultimate secret is that he simply doesn't compare his life to others.
Right.
Honestly, how realistic is that for you or me? We live in a digital ecosystem explicitly designed, like engineered by thousands of smart people, to force comparison.
It's literally built for that.
Right? Ryan was constantly bombarded with images of expensive cars and large houses online. How do you just miraculously turn off the urge to compare yourself in an economy that runs on making you feel inadequate so you'll buy more things?
It's a very fair skepticism. I mean, what's fascinating here is that you cannot just block out the external noise through sheer willpower alone.
You just exhaust yourself.
Exactly. The human brain is wired for social comparison. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism. But Omar doesn't rely on willpower.
Oh, okay. What does he do?
He creates a completely different internal value system that naturally acts as a shield against that whole ecosystem.
Oh, I see.
Omar consciously places his highest value on simple, intrinsic experiences. The physical sensation of a morning walk, the warmth of a good conversation.
Things you can't buy?
Right. Because he values things that cannot be commodified or ranked on a leaderboard, external comparisons lose their psychological grip on him.
So if your primary goal for the day is to enjoy a quiet cup of coffee and read a book, someone else buying a private jet doesn't actually threaten your goal.
Exactly. The currencies don't translate.
Yeah, it makes so much sense.
You cannot induce envy in someone who operates on a different standard of value. Omar rejects the shiny luxury metrics pushed by social media, not out of spite, but because he recognizes they are fundamentally incapable of delivering the psychological peace he prioritizes.
He defines his own parameters.
He has made himself immune to comparison by refusing to play that specific game.
Okay, I buy that Omar has figured this out for himself. But grasping a philosophical concept while drinking a latte is one thing. Actually taking that concept home and using it to rewire a deeply ingrained hustle mindset, that's a totally different challenge.
Oh, a massive challenge.
Ryan's brain is accustomed to running at 10,000 RPMs. He can't just flip a switch and become a Zen master. If he tries to just sit still in his empty apartment, his anxiety is going to spike.
Yes, his mind will just race.
He needs a tangible mechanism to physically slow his cognitive processing down.
And this is where the narrative introduces a fascinating, highly effective intervention.
I love this part.
To rewire a highly active, anxious brain, you need a task that requires high focus but carries incredibly low stakes.
Low stake, right.
You need something that forces you into the present moment but doesn't trigger your fight or flight response about your career or your finances. And for Ryan, this tool comes from a highly unexpected place.
Beginner English language books.
Yes.
It seems like such a bizarre pivot at first glance. Instead of his usual routine of doom scrolling through social media late at night, feeding that comparison engine we just talked about, Ryan decides to pick up the books his friend Omar recommended.
Right.
Ryan had always vaguely wanted to improve his English, but in his previous mindset, he never made the time for it because it didn't immediately translate to a higher salary.
There was no obvious ROI.
Exactly. No return on investment.
But the lack of immediate financial ROI is exactly why it works as a therapeutic tool. Let's look at the specific resources he utilizes because they function on multiple psychological levels.
Okay, let's break them down.
First, there's a book called Short Stories in English for Beginners by Teach Yourself. On a practical level, yes, it's designed for language acquisition. But neurologically for Ryan, the simplicity of the text forces a deceleration of his thoughts.
Oh, because it's hard to read.
Because when you are reading a language you are not fluent in, you have to concentrate on every single word, every grammatical structure.
Ah, I see. You can't just skim it. You can't let your mind wander to tomorrow's budget meeting, because if you do, you lose the plot of the story entirely.
Precisely. This intense, localized concentration forces the brain's default mode network to quiet down.
The default mode network, what is that exactly?
It's the part of our brain responsible for rumination, for worrying about the future, and for regretting the past.
Oh, the anxiety center, basically.
Pretty much. By hyper-focusing on translating a simple story about everyday life, Ryan is inadvertently practicing a form of active mindfulness. The stories are about basic human choices and everyday emotions, which brings him a completely unfamiliar sensation.
Wow, that's a great trick. And then a few days later, he moves on to another resource, right?
Right.
The book is called Learn English Through Stories, 16 Stories to Improve Your English Grammar and English Vocabulary. And this book acts as a mirror for him.
It really confronts him.
Totally. One of the stories is literally about a man who spent his entire life relentlessly chasing money, only to realize he entirely forgot to experience the present moment. Ryan reads this simple, beginner-level English story, and it just stops him in his tracks.
It hits him hard.
The narrative strips away all the complex justifications he usually uses for his ambition. It presents his own life to him in the simplest possible terms.
It's a moment of profound self-reflection triggered by an incredibly unassuming medium.
Yeah.
Complex philosophical treatises might have made Ryan defensive, but a beginner English story bypasses those defenses.
It sneaks right past the ego.
Exactly. Then he adds a third resource to his daily commute: Effortless English. Learn to speak English like a native. He listens to this audio program instead of stressing about work on his way to the office.
And the core methodology of that audio program delivers a philosophical gut punch to Ryan, because the entire premise of the program is that learning should feel natural, growth must be consistent, and the process should never be rushed.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it fundamentally challenges his worldview.
Right. Learning a language is the perfect analogy for Omar's philosophy on life.
Exactly. Think about his previous formula: force the inputs, grind through the hours, extract the result. Language learning vehemently rejects that formula.
You can't bribe your brain into understanding complex grammar overnight. You can't just work a 14-hour day and suddenly become fluent.
No, you can't.
You have to experience it step by step, allowing the neural pathways to form organically. You can't buy fluency.
These English language books function as Trojan horses in Ryan's life. On the surface, his conscious objective is to acquire new vocabulary. But subconsciously, they are actively retraining his nervous system.
That's fascinating.
They are teaching him that genuine, sustainable growth, whether acquiring a new language or building a meaningful life, must be organic and unpressured. It is a direct, structural counter-argument to his old habit of rushing and forcing everything for immediate gain.
So Ryan uses these language exercises to basically create mental breathing room. And by quieting the noise in his head, he finally establishes the internal space required to audit his own life.
Yeah.
He shifts his core internal question from, how can I earn more, to what actually matters to me, which is a huge turning point.
A massive paradigm shift.
But I'm curious what this actually looks like in practice. Having a revelation on your commute is great, but Ryan still has rent to pay, right?
Right. He doesn't live in a fantasy world.
So how does a profound internal shift translate to the reality of navigating a modern career?
It translates through the implementation of tangible boundaries. Ryan doesn't quit his job and move to a cabin in the woods. He still works hard and fulfills his responsibilities. But he stops treating his job as his entire identity. He starts leaving the office on time whenever possible. He makes a point to call his family more frequently. He goes out with his friends and is fully present with them.
Like he isn't secretly obsessing over work emails under the table while pretending to listen to a conversation.
Exactly. He reclaims his attention, and he continues reading and practicing his English, not because he's pressured to achieve a certain fluency level by a deadline, but simply for the intrinsic joy of personal growth.
It becomes a quiet revolution in his daily routine.
Yes.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I'm looking at the conclusion of the source text, where it outlines a checklist for what it calls true success.
And what's on that list?
It distills the concept down to 5 essential pillars. We've got peace of mind, good health, meaningful relationships, having the time to enjoy life, and continuous personal growth.
That's a solid list.
But I'm looking at this list, and I have to push back a little here. Money is noticeably absent. Are we supposed to pretend money doesn't matter at all in this new definition of success?
Yeah.
If we take Ryan's epiphany and strip away the luxury cars and high-paying salaries, what is the actual tangible checklist doing here? How does this source reconcile peace of mind with the realities of inflation and paying bills?
Well, the source doesn't ignore the reality of money. Rather, it demotes money from the lead role to a supporting character.
Okay, explain that.
In this multidimensional framework of success, money's only job is to provide enough comfort and stability to allow those 5 core pillars to thrive.
Right.
If you are sacrificing your health, your relationships, and your peace of mind to acquire more money, you are failing the success metric. Money is merely the scaffolding, not the building itself.
That distinction changes everything. It reframes our priorities completely.
It does.
I mean, we've followed Ryan on this journey from being an exhausted, stressed out guy, relentlessly chasing a digital illusion of luxury, to finding profound, quiet contentment.
And he didn't find it by winning the lottery or getting a massive promotion.
No. He found it by setting boundaries, reading beginner English stories to neurologically slow his brain down, and consciously prioritizing internal balance over the size of his bank account.
He stopped trying to solve the broken math equation of his life, and instead he changed the metrics he was using to measure his days.
Which brings us to a question we want to pose directly to you, the listener. Think about your own daily routines, your own stressors, the things you prioritize when you are overwhelmed. Ask yourself honestly, what does success really mean to me?
As the text notes, your honest answer to that single question dictates where you spend your energy, your time, and ultimately your life.
It really is the foundation of everything else you build. Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that really struck me about Ryan's method.
What's that?
Well, think about Ryan sitting peacefully in his apartment at the end of the story. He already lived in that nice apartment while he was miserable.
No, that's true.
Right. If the ultimate realization of success is just having the time to breathe and enjoy the present moment, does that mean true success isn't a destination we have to earn our way toward, but simply the sudden awareness that we already have everything we need to be content right now?
That is a profound way to look at it.
And think about how he got there. Ryan found his way out of extreme, advanced-level burnout by forcing himself to go back to reading beginner-level English stories. He found peace in an activity where he was entirely incompetent and had no pressure to be an expert.
There's a unique relief in allowing yourself to be a novice.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, where else in our lives are we suffering simply because we refuse to be a beginner again? We cling so tightly to our expertise, our titles, and our competence that it becomes a cage of pressure.
It's exhausting to always have to be the expert.
So, what if the secret to avoiding burnout isn't mastering your current field, but finding a completely new arena where you are allowed to be entirely clueless? Something for you to explore on your own. Keep questioning your metrics, stay curious, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.